For more than half a century, dolphins and whales, known as cetaceans, have entertained us with their size, their intelligence, their beguiling smile, and their playful antics. Yet behind that built-in smile lies a dark side of captivity few know anything about. The volatile controversy of taking these fascinating social animals from their families in the wild to a tiny concrete tank in the name of public education.
Public education here at SeaWorld is phenomenal. The people that walk out of our park have a better understanding, better appreciation of the animal. The awareness level is just heightened.
Brad Andrews is Chief Zoological Officer for SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment.
It's hard to compare. If you look back 20 years ago and where people thought about dolphins, if they couldn't have this exposure, dolphins would still be shot out in the wild. Because 20 years ago they were. They were a menace. No one really cared about them. Nobody understood them. Nobody knew them. But now they do.
This show is nothing more than a display of dominance. It teaches us that dominance is good, dominance is right, dominance works.
Rick O'Barry was the trainer for the Flipper television show. For the past 40 years, he has dedicated himself to returning captive dolphins to the wild.
And so the show only serves to perpetuate our insidious utilitarian perception of nature. It is, in fact, a form of bad education. And that's what this issue is all about. It's not just about the 1,000 dolphins in captivity. It's as much about the hundreds of millions of people who go through there and are miseducated, who come out of there thinking they belong here.
I think there probably was, emphasis on the past tense, a real educational value in the 50s and the 60s, maybe into the early 70s.
Dr. John Hall was a marine mammal biologist for SeaWorld. He left that position in the early 90s.
Because a lot of Americans weren't aware of the uniqueness and the capabilities and the lifestyle of these marine mammals, and that one relatively inexpensive way for them to learn about them was to go to marine parks that held these animals in captivity. But I think that function has passed, and I think that basically we're seeing nothing new on the educational horizon that we didn't already know in the early 70s, and that the educational value today is dramatically reduced, if it's present at all. Our increased understanding and ability to conduct non-invasive research in the wild is far more educational than anything that can be gathered today in an oceanarium environment, especially an oceanarium that holds marine mammals.
If you could just make undertaking.
When you look at the social life of dolphins and whales, it is difficult to underestimate the fact that their social life is everything to them. There is no such thing as a happy, solitary dolphin. Their lives, their selves, are meant to be defined in relation to their complex social group, in relation to others, who their friends are, who their family is, who their kids are, even who their enemies are. They just cannot be dolphins and whales without other dolphins and whales.
These are very stable, long-term societies. On the coast of British Columbia here, these societies have gone back 10,000 years or more.
Dr. Paul Spong has spent the past 30 years researching wild killer whales that have roamed the coastal waters off Washington State and British Columbia as far back as the Ice Age.
They're, as far as I can tell, very conscious animals. They're very deliberate in the way in which they move, the way in which they relate to one another, and they're successful. You know, they're successful over the long term.
Spong began his career as a researcher at the Vancouver Public Aquarium, where he learned firsthand the unique qualities of the animals many now call orcas, qualities that convinced him they belong only in the wild.
I had a whale named Skunner involved in a very long, repetitive series of experiments. And then finally, from one trial to another, the whale reversed its behavior, went from 100% correct on a task to 0% correct, and it stayed there. And it, for the first time, made me think about what that animal was.
People say, well, they're big brain intelligent animals. Well, they have to stop and talk. Well, is that a neurosurgeon talking? Is that somebody that does brain anatomy work? Or is that somebody that truly wants to, again, make a mystique of the animal? They're no more intelligent than my dog. When you stop and talk about people that study cetacean anatomy, they tell you that the wiring isn't the same as in a human.
I've studied dolphin and whale brains for close to 20 years. I've studied their brains, I've studied their behavior, their cognitive abilities, and I can tell you that the idea that dolphins and whales are no more intelligent than dogs is simply indefensible. The fact is that their brains are much larger in relative size and more convoluted than most animals except modern humans. And their capacities are extremely rare in the animal kingdom. And smart as dogs and cats and other animals are, and I don't want to put dogs down, but the fact of the matter is when it comes to dolphins and whales, we're talking about a very rare, complex intelligence that I don't think is matched in the rest of the animal kingdom, with the exception of humans and possibly elephants and other primates.
Senior scientist for Humane Society International, Dr. Naomi Rose, is one of the foremost experts on the natural history of wild orcas and their complex societies.
Orcas are probably the most socially bonded mammals on the planet. In some ways even more so than human beings. The offspring of a female, the matriarch, stay with her for their whole life. Daughters will eventually move away some distance to raise their own families, but the sons stay with their mothers for a lifetime. They'll leave her briefly for a few days, possibly a couple of weeks, to mate with unrelated females, but they'll always return to the mother at the end of all that. So historically, when a researcher saw a female or a group of females with a large male in the group, they assumed that it was a harem bull with all of his harem females. But in fact, he was the oldest son of one of the females in that group, or the brother or the uncle of one of the females in that group. It's really a remarkable social system that is, in fact, very rare in the animal